Welcome everyone to episode 29. Oh God, 29 of Not In All In, where we just sort of talk about whatever sort of tickles the fancy. What is a fancy and how does it get tickled? Huh.
We're not far enough into the show to really discuss that
Yeah,
yet.
whoa.
We'll get booted from YouTube.
Okay, well, I don't want that. I don't want that. This might be something that I've just never really thought about. Much like, what do you do with the cake other than eat it? I don't know. Before I move on, guys, I told you right before you had one job just to keep me from going off, and I lasted less than a minute.
Yeah.
Here it's Not In All In, where we just sort of discuss sort of the most pertinent things in our sporting world. And I'm Kirk Buchner along with Longhorn Dave Whitlock and Chris Mouradian. And before we sort of go into that realm, this is our last show while the third class of the United States Athletic Hall of Fame voting is still going to be up. So we want you after this show to go to www.theusahof.com and you can help decide who is going to be part of the third American U.S. Hall of Fame class. And this is sports encompassing 16 different sports. You're voting for athletes, coaches, contributors. And here's the great thing. When it's all done, we're not going to publish how many votes everyone got, but we will post the order. So you're going to see who finishes dead last, which is unfortunate for some. Luckily, a lot of them are dead, so they're not going to be that offended. Having said that, it is as transparent as it comes. We're really proud of that. We're really proud of the fact that we've already broken a record long ago of the amount of votes, and it's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to be probably doing a show next week where Chris and Dave have an idea how things are going. I don't actually know because I don't see the votes daily. My webmaster will send that to me on December 1st when all votes are counted. And there we go. We won't have to worry about an electoral college. We won't have to worry about any recount. It's already there in black and white. It is set. It is locked in. Here's what else is locked in. Dave does a Sportsman of the Week, and we're recording this on 2 nights before Thanksgiving. I should say American Thanksgiving because I'm a Canadian.
American Thanksgiving, yeah.
Yeah. We do ours, and somebody asked me that once when I was working at the train station in Canada, and it was an American said, how come you do yours early? I said, well, because of the metric system. They believed me. Yeah. Didn't send your best and brightest that day, but that's another for another time.
Must have been a Minnesotan.
Minnesotan, yeah.
You know what? I didn't ask. Although I do remember that I did convince somebody that my corgi was actually a wolf and was part of an experiment at the national park to see if we could domesticate them.
And that was there in Seattle, right? They believed you?
No, that was in the Rockies. That was in the Canadian Rockies.
Seattle, Canadian Rockies.
Not really the same thing.
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
All right, then. Dave does the Sportsman of the Week, and I know it's going to be really exciting because next week, man, Thanksgiving, you're going to have a lot to choose from next week. So I'm really looking forward to see who that's going to be. But who was it this past week?
Yeah, no, and back to your comment about the metric system, there has to be an Aggie joke in there somewhere because as Longhorn Dave on Sports, that's our big rival this week.
Okay.
But it is not an Aggie Sportsman of the Week. Actually, you make a good point. Last week was I would just call kind of a slower sports week. A lot of the college football, especially the SEC, lined up their gimme buys before the big rivalry games. There wasn't really that much great action in the Big Ten or some of the other conferences. But so we did stay in college football. Somebody you probably haven't heard of, which I always love to do for my blog, but it's Jakari Turner, the running back for the Pittsburgh Panthers. Crested 200 yards in a big win against Georgia Tech, pretty much upending that entire ACC conference title race. So, I looked across the board, looked for who stood out in a big game, in a big upset, that type of thing. It was Jakari Turner. He goes by Boosie. It's one of his nicknames. So that's another reason to pick him. So Boosie Turner is the Longhorn Dave Sportsman of the Week, which you can see on my blog at forget that part. www.lhd-on-sports sportsman.com. And every week there's a new Sportsman. Next week it's going to be big. The Thanksgiving games are going to be huge. The Chiefs, Cowboys, of course, and the Lions game, all playoff contenders. Plus you got all these rivalry games where I think we're going to see some upsets in college football this week. There's a lot of teams like Ohio State playing on the road, like Texas A&M playing on the road, that we could see some people emerge. So it's going to be a great sports week, starting with talking with you guys.
What question there for you, Dave? I'm just sort of curious. I don't want to forget to ask this. Who's sort of like been one guy that missed out because it was just like a loaded week and you thought, it's all right, I'm going to get to him or her?
I probably have to go back and look. There have been some cases, sometimes if you think about, like a race car driver or a cyclist or something like that, that's on one of these, like I said, not a stick and ball sports. Mm-hmm. Do you pick them over somebody who pitched a no-hitter or had 400 yards passing? Eventually it catches up. There's probably one or two out there, particularly if you're talking about, I like to go with college athletes. Jakari and Turner may or may not make the NFL. He's a freshman for Pittsburgh, so we'll see. Certainly an impressive debut. He's been getting better as the season goes along. He may be a Heisman candidate in 2 years, or may never hear from him again. I look back, the only other Pittsburgh Panther to ever win was James Conner over 10 years ago when he had a big bowl game for Pittsburgh. So, okay. These things kind of come in cycles, and so we'll see.
All right. Well, sticking with football, our main event today is going to be the Pro Football Hall of Fame, who announced this morning the semifinalists. But I have been finding it a very fascinating season thus far in the NFL. Actually, I could say the same thing for the NHL, where there's so much parity going on right now. But finally, and again, we're still many, many weeks out yet, but usually by this time we have a top contender and everyone else trying to sort of like make their stake towards that team. And there hasn't really been a team out yet. Although, do we finally see one in the Los Angeles Rams? As we saw a top contending team beat another top contending team in Tampa Bay handily. And I don't know about the rest of you, but I'll use my own personal bias here. I can't get sold on a team that just came out of nowhere yet, like New England, like Indianapolis, who fell to Kansas City. I'm still not sold on a lot of those teams yet. Is Los Angeles right now, did they establish themselves, even though I don't believe that they have the number one seed right now in the NFC? I could be wrong on that. But are they the team to beat with what we just saw?
Chris, you want to go first?
Sure. I would say they are right now today. But this, like you said, this has been a very fluid situation from the start of the season. The first 2 weeks, it seemed like Green Bay was the undisputed champions, and then they kind of ran into issues. And now they're, kind of struggling, not struggling, but, they haven't been able to kind of reestablish that early season dominance. Philadelphia was there. And then they've kind of had their struggles with pretty epic collapse against Dallas this past weekend. But through it all, the Rams have been there. 9-2, 10-2, whatever their record is today. They're the number one. Nobody's really kind of challenged them yet strongly for that number one position at this point. So they were my preseason pick coming out of the NFC. Stand by that today, and do believe that they have set themselves up to be a tough out for anybody going to the playoff season.
Yeah, I don't remember that being your pick, Chris, but I'm sure our videotape will
we'll go to the tape. We'll go to the tape.
Yeah, it wasn't mine.
But
Chris says something like, "Yeah, the Rams are the team to beat," and Kirk and I get up off the floor laughing at him like, "You kidding me? The Packers, the Eagles, But they actually are the number one seed right now. They're the only team with just 2 losses. Just kind of looking at the standings in the NFC. In the AFC, you alluded to the Patriots and the Broncos, or you didn't mention the Broncos, but those are the only 2 teams with 2 losses there. I think we see a lot of cracks in the armor of the Eagles. There seems to be some internal bickering among who's getting the ball enough between A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith and Jalen Hurts. They've got the talent, certainly, and of course the pedigree of winning the Super Bowl in recent times. They know how to do it. They know what it takes. They certainly dominated the playoffs last year. But look at a team like the Rams. They've got by most accounts or all accounts, a top-notch coach that knows how to get a team together. You've got a really good running back in Kyron Williams. You've got really good receivers in Devontae Adams and Puka Nakua. You've got a defense that, I was just kind of looking at their last several games in terms of points allowed, 7 points to the Bucks, and they knocked out Baker, only 19 to the Seahawks in a close win. The Niners did put up 26, but they scored 42. And then before that, it's 10, 7, 3. So they got a pretty good defense. The 2 losses versus the Niners and Eagles. And the Eagles, again, was early in the season. Both were by 6 points or fewer, 7 points or fewer. So I would have to put them right there for the NFC. Yeah, I think we kind of keep waiting. Chris talked about, the Packers also seem to be like that complete team. They have running backs, they have some receivers, they have good defense, but they just seem to stumble over themselves a little more than you might expect. They're in a dog race, and I mean the Rams are too. They're only one game ahead of the Seahawks, who have also been impressive with the new quarterback there. The Niners are 8-4 there, so they're only one. It's possible the Rams could be the number 1 seed. It's possible the Rams could be on the road in the first round. Like you said, nobody's really establishing themselves as the favorites in either conference. And so I think it's one of the more interesting seasons. The Chiefs bounced back last week, but they're not their usual selves. The Bills seem lost at times. The Ravens are recovering from injury. Some of these teams that we've seen year in, year out, just kind of coast through to at least the conference semifinals, if not the conference finals, aren't there. So you got these teams like the Bears that we're not sure what to do with, or the Patriots, teams that have been perpetually 10, 11, 12 game losers every year, suddenly with young quarterbacks in their second and third year really playing well. So it's going to be a really, really fun last month of the season. I think most years you could you could pencil in, you could pick about 6 or 7 teams that 4 of those 6 or 7 are going to be in the final 4. I think that's as much as 10 or 11 teams this year.
Yeah, and just one more thing before we get into the Hall of Fame. Brandon Ayuk, if I were to do the counter of Dave's Sportsman of the Week and do the dumbass of the week, it would be you. Say that half the battle is just showing up. Here, 100% of your pay is just showing up. Can you play? No? Okay, well, let's just do a couple physicals here. Okay, you still can't play. You couldn't even do that. He lost. Well, I'm assuming he's going to get another contract at some point, but for sure, he already lost $30 million guaranteed because his contract's going to get voided. And for what? Just because you couldn't be bothered to get off your couch? You're not going to make that type of money long term. You're not that guy.
Yeah, it's baffling, and a team that's also competing, like we said, they're 8-4, they're right there. He's established himself as as their top receiver. Once some of the other guys left, besides a healthy Kittle, it is really head scratcher.
John Morant thinks you're stupid. Like I don't understand how you fall into. Well, you don't fall into it. You work pretty hard, obviously, to get there. Anyone who makes the National Football League, I don't care what type of personality they have or what type of God's gifts they were given. You have to hone those skills. And you did, to a good contract, a damn good contract, a life-changing contract. Unfortunately, you get hurt, but you had a guaranteed contract in football. A lot of them aren't. I don't understand you, Brandon. I do not. You're my dumbass of the week. There we go. I'm not going to always have a dumbass of the week. I don't want to be that negative guy. But when I see stupidity like this on full display, you don't even have to drive there. Someone's going to drive you. Bring your goddamn Nintendo with you. Stupid. So stupid. I got no segue, so I'm just going to go right to it. The Pro Football Hall of Fame today announced their 26 semifinalists. Usually it's 25, so clearly there was a tie. They have a suspicion it might have been in the O-line because we saw some interesting things sort of take place. But usually we don't see a lot of interesting things on semifinalists. Usually we know who's going to be a first-time semifinalist based on what they're bringing to the table. And usually if you're a semifinalist before, there's a damn good chance you're going to be again. It didn't happen for one person in particular who we're going to talk about. I wonder if we could just do this by position.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, okay. Quarterbacks, first off, Drew Brees. I think we can all agree it's about as good a lock as it's going to get. Drew's now the number one seed in all quarterbacks. So who does this hurt more? Philip Rivers, I think for him getting here is pretty good. There's a lot of talent who's going to be coming up behind him. Roethlisberger's coming up soon. Matt Ryan with very similar numbers is coming soon. Tom Brady, when he's in, that's one and done. But we're seeing a lot of people with similar numbers. Drew has the Super Bowl. Eli's got two. I think Philip was the better quarterback than Eli. Nevertheless, Eli has those two Super Bowls. He's got the platform. He took Danny DeVito's job in those Jersey Mike commercials. And Philip Rivers doesn't promote himself because that's just not who he is.
No, he just duplicates or replicates himself many times.
Yeah, I was just saying, an entire football team of spawn.
Yeah. So what happens here? I don't see how Eli is going to get one of those coveted spots, especially I'm talking about. I think he's going to advance as a finalist, but
well, he was in his 50. He was part of the 15 last year. But do you think that he makes it again this year?
I do.
Interesting.
I do. I don't think Philip does, but I think it's a very good thing for him to make it to this stage, because we've seen he's already done something that a lot of great quarterbacks never did. Mm-hmm. Donovan McNabb, who we've talked about a lot on these programs, never made it here. Philip's here year one.
Yeah, some of the Philip Rivers numbers, I mean, the longevity helps, but he was a top quarterback. He won a lot of big playoff games, and so I certainly think he's going to have to be in the conversation for years to come. I think I would agree with you, Kirk. I think that with Brees, the tendency is to diversify the finalists to some extent. So you definitely won't see all three, but if you were to see 2 out of 3, I wouldn't. Yeah, the Eli Manning thing is a conundrum because you never thought, Eli Manning's the highlight of this game, but those 2 Super Bowls but he had some really good defenses. So I would go if I had to pick 2, I would go Brees and Rivers, but I think only one's going to advance.
Yeah, it's kind of where I am as well. I think with Brees entering the conversation here this year, being the 1A, 1B candidate between him and Fitz, we'll get to in a bit here. Do they really need to advance a second quarterback to talk about that's not going to get through? Or do you take that time to advance somebody that maybe hasn't quite got the conversation yet, like a Wiz or Lomas Brown, some on the old line there. So I'm kind of with Dave there. I think there's only going to be one that makes it through, and it's going to be Brees. But we'll see what they decided to do. Who do they want to talk about this year?
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, and I'm only basically saying this because usually once you're a finalist too, it's rare you fall off. Mm-hmm. So I'm just going by patterns that we've seen before. And I think in our football chat group and in a lot of the conversations that we've had with among our peers, a lot of us are of the same opinion. There's a lot of us who think Eli does belong in the Hall of Fame. I know I do, but I thought it would have been criminal for him to get in right away. For me, he's somebody that you've got to sit on for a bit. And I think there is. I know some people will say, well, there's value in being get the Pro Football Hall of Fame regardless of when. No. I know we've been there, and we see that there's not a special plaque if you got in first ballot, but we know.
Yep. Same with baseball, same with others,
Yep.
Inner circle, all that stuff.
Absolutely. Bill Simmons in his book of basketball wanted to redo. Actually, any idea to redo the Basketball Hall of Fame is a good idea, but he wanted to do like a pyramid, and you're sort of like so you've got your level 5, level 4. I think he might have done it in tiers, but it's either way. there's going to be a lot more people who are going to see certain players than others.
I'm just imagining, the parties at the Hall of Fame weekend where it's like, the inner circle has the really secret room with the leather couches, and these fifth tier guys got to, sit outside with paper cups drinking,
with the public,
natural light in the grass or something.
Yeah, the public gets to hang out with them.
Yeah, that's right.
I think they did that in the Brain Candy Kids in the Hall movie. Oh, where they brought them to the real party.
So one of those weird Canadian shows I'm trying to keep track.
Yeah, Kids in the Hall that's pretty well known. I've heard of it.
Yeah, I've heard of it too.
Didn't really make any of them big stars, but
there's some funny stuff.
Really good stuff, yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know. I think I look a bit like a younger Dave Foley right now.
Let's move to the next group there, Kirk.
Running backs?
Fine. Running backs. Okay, Frank, we have only two. And here's the first. So we have Frank Gore and Fred Taylor. First casualty, Ricky Watters. Ricky Watters actually reposted Dave Whitlock's presentation on our mock committee last year. He actually asked us to do it again. And I responded, hey, why don't you come on the show? And he didn't. Maybe if he would have come on the show. Huh? Well, Ricky, this is your no. Actually, no, Ricky, we're all big fans of yours, but for you to fall off in year 20, considering you were a semifinalist last year, is very, very strange. I would actually take your peak over Frank Gore's and Fred Taylor's, personally. I also don't understand how Marshawn Lynch isn't here, whose peak would I rather have? Who do I want to give the ball to if I've got just one play and I need 2 yards?
No, you got to pass. Can't run that.
Well, yeah, you're right. I got to overthink it. I have to overthink it. But to me, the bigger loser here, even though we only have 2 running backs, is actually Taylor. Taylor had the most rushing yards out of anyone left over. Not anymore. Frank Gore does.
Yep.
Frank Gore is your consummate compiler. Still here. So I shouldn't say still in the league, but it felt like I was saying that year after year. Holy crap, he's still here, and maybe he could have played even a couple years longer.
Yeah, he was still contributing. He wasn't just, he was still usually that 1 or 1A running back.
15 yards away from 20,000 all purpose, 1 TD away from 100. That is great overall numbers. Was he ever a top 5 running back? Maybe 1 year in San Francisco. And I'm not even sure of that.
Yeah, I mean, the second year was probably his strongest year there with the 49ers. All-pro, second team All-Pro that year. You're right. I mean, the 16,000 yards is a huge number, especially in an era now where running the ball is not as, I don't say it's not as important, but it's not being done as regularly as it was in the past. So the numbers of the modern era guys are just not reaching that level anymore. It's really weird that, like you said, that Ricky Watters did fall off though because of the 20 years and how in recent years they seem to be giving those guys not priority, but like, hey, before they fall into the abyss, let's at least talk about them. And maybe they just, after talking about them last year, they knew it wasn't gonna be. Frank Gore was not somebody I expected to make it to the semifinals here in his first year, but he's here, and say, all right, let's see where it goes from here. I don't think either one advances, gets elected this year, but I think likely that Fred Taylor does move back into the semifinals again, I would think.
You mean the finals?
The finals, right? Yeah, finals, yeah, 15.
Yeah, I said this last year when stumping for Watters. It's the running back position. There's been only one in front of me, 1 or 2 elected the last 5 or 6 years. The position just seems to be kind of dead. Now there's some other people coming. We thought Marshawn would be here. Now you've got Gore, who's one of the all-time leading rushers. Waters was right there with all the stats. And so it's unfortunate, like Chris was saying, that these days, I mean, it used to be you ran the ball to open up the pass. Every team's first two plays are going to be running plays, and you pass if you have to. Now it's, the spread offense. But still, all these people we're going to talk about today, outside of the quarterbacks, usually the running backs could be the one that touches the ball most every game. They're going to touch the ball 15 to 20 times in every game as a number one running back, and we're just overlooking these guys for guys that don't have the ball. And I think it's a shame. These aren't the strongest candidates. We're not talking about an Emmitt Smith or somebody like that, but I think I'd like to see them both advance. I don't think it's going to happen, but you look at by position, defense is a little thin overall, but this is besides tight end, this is the one that just has the minimum amount of people. There's all these offensive linemen, all these defensive backs, but here we are with just two running backs, guys that touch it 20 times a game, and we can't seem to value that enough, in my opinion.
Well, look at
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so I don't think we're really going to see much movement on the running backs until Peterson gets here. I think he's kind of going to be the one that maybe breaks through here, but it's going to be kind of a cluttered room here because there's a lot of running backs that get nominated every year. It's just nobody's really kind of separating themselves from this group yet.
Then you go back and look at a guy like Earl Campbell, whose career was very, very short. His overall yards are very limited, but overwhelmingly considered, an inner circle Hall of Famer, one of the great running backs of all time. So just a different era.
I think also the way they're looking at this position, they're putting it on a higher level. Tiki, I'm not a big Tiki guy, but Tiki was a semifinalist, didn't make the cut of 52 this year. Sean Alexander, MVP, didn't make the cut of 52. Are they putting this position at a much higher premium? And maybe that could be.
Yeah.
I mean, that's really the only thing I could think of. Someone who could have had an outside shot here, first ballot, LaShawn McCoy. 6 Pro Bowls for a running back is decent, in this era, even like in that era.
It's more than Frank Gore had.
It's considerably, yeah, it is. And Frank Gore never was. Like, I think LaShawn was a first team All Pro. I know Gore wasn't. I'm pretty sure McCoy was once, maybe even twice. If you want to check that out while we're sort of looking at that.
Twice.
Twice,
With,
okay.
Actually, 2010 Hall of Fame All-Decade team as well.
Okay. So, yeah, I mean, so it's there, but they seem to be more leaning towards the next position and wide receivers. And we have Larry Fitzgerald, who I don't think we need to talk much on. Chris, you mentioned earlier, that's your 1B or 1A, depending on how you want to. I don't have a problem flipping them either. I think they're both. Obviously, I got a little bit of minor bias here, but whatever. I think they're both walking in.
Yeah, I think the quarterback's still going to carry the A there being the premium position, but they're both first ballot.
Yeah, and then we have, for me, the most interesting returnee is Torrey Holt. Greatest show on turf. He's been a finalist. This is 9? Well, I'm assuming he's going to be a finalist again. I apologize, right. But yeah, so I think it's like 8 or 9 that he's going to be a finalist. Reggie Wayne right behind him, but they love their Colts teams, and Peyton's stumping for him. Steve Smith was my surprise finalist last year. Not that I hold him in a lower regard. I just didn't think he was going to get there that early. And I will again go with my prediction I made a few years ago. I think it's looking even better. Hines Ward, 20 for 20. Book it. 20 semifinalists, 20 never even advancing. And there's nothing this year that's changing my mind because he's again last on this list.
Yeah, should have put in Waters instead of him. Can't disagree with what you're talking about from the receiver position. Certainly Fitzgerald is going to be there. I think in the other shows you do past, I think I've stumped for both Holt and Wayne. Mm-hmm. Sometimes they get the moniker of, well, they were the other guy as compared to the Marvin Harrison Sr. and some of the other great receivers that the Rams had. But I think I like all three to eventually get in the hall. That's why I've talked about them before. But I think Larry gets in. Mix probably a couple, maybe those get to the finals. Have to depends on what they do with the offensive linemen, how many of those guys advance as to whether they're going to be heavy on that or put in a second or third receiver.
Yeah, I kind of agree there too. I think Hines Ward is underrated for what he brought to the Steelers those years. I don't think the numbers pop as like some of the other guys, but he did so much more on that team that kind of
Excellent blocker.
doesn't get picked up in the box score there. So I'm actually really kind of hoping he does break through here at one point and does not go over 20 here. But
I just like being right. It's nothing against you personally. Nothing. It's nothing personal. I just like to say I told you so.
Yeah,
we all do.
Well, man, it's part of our DNA.
Yeah. One thing I do want to point out here is that we did have was it Anquan Bolden fall out at who was had been part of this before, so he kind of lost his spot to Larry Fitzgerald here this year. So that kind of maybe gives you a little bit of a hierarchy here with Fitz kind of coming in, Bolden falling off, and then you got the holdovers of Holt and Wayne. Again, a little 1A, 1B there as far as their careers, depending on who you talk to, and then Steve Smith and Hines Ward that both kind of have made it through still as well. So, it kind of gets back to the whole, we only put in 3 last year. Now we got starting to build, a backlog again here, especially wide receiver. Hopefully they get it figured out, but I don't think any of us kind of look at any of these guys here that made it this far and don't think that they didn't have a Hall of Fame career as far as the wide receivers go. It's just going to be one of those. They got to figure they got to figure this stuff out and say, all right, well, look, we're gonna do this here, and we're gonna X, Y, Z, and away we go.
If this was a position where if they actually have collusion, it'd be the one to do.
Yeah, for sure, because it's not going to get any more shallow of a pool here with the way the ball's being thrown around the yard nowadays.
Yeah, which brings us to someone who's going to get in. I think if he would have retired and stayed retired after 2017, it'd be a different story. It's Jason Witten. Obviously, Antonio Gates getting in is had to happen. Gates had the better resume than Witten did. Witten does have a Hall of Fame career, over 13,000 yards, 74 TDs, but Gronk is up soon. So if Witten doesn't get in first ballot, which is probable.
Probable he does, is what you're saying. Or probably he doesn't.
Probably doesn't. I think he's going to the finals, but I don't think he's going to get in because, again, we have to sort of remind everyone that under the new math, it's a lot harder under the ballot structure. So we only saw 3 moderns get in last year. They have to receive, what percentage is it? I believe I'm blanking on that.
80% or
is it 80 or 70? Either way, it's a hard thing to get
80,
to.
40 out of 50.
Once they cut it to the final 7, right? So they have to at least
right.
Yeah. So which is still very, very difficult to do. And they'll have a minimum of 3. So if they're going by pure talent and numbers, you got to figure that Drew and Larry have 1 and 2.
Mm-hmm.
And then everything else gets mixed up. So it's going to be possibly whoever finishes 3rd. And that's it. That's my guess. I mean, I don't know for sure, obviously, but it'll be hard for Witten to sort of crack that when he's going up against a sentimental favorite like Torrey Holt, Luke Kuechly, who we're going to talk about later, who in I think other years would have been other parameters would have been a first year. Adam Vinatieri, who is the GOAT of his position. Witten, it's going to be really hard. And when Gronk's there, then that's going to change. If he's still there when Kelsey comes up, Travis, then he falls down again.
Mm-hmm.
Witten will get in, but he could be 10, 11, 12 years. He could be taking the Torrey Holt path.
Yeah,
No.
no, agree with you there. I see him as a Hall of Famer. I don't know that he necessarily needs to be a first ballot guy. Gates wasn't last year. Waiting a year isn't the worst thing for him, but he belongs. Gronk is next year, I believe. So probably not going to be a second year guy either, because I don't see him putting in two tight ends in that year, especially with AP and Roethlisberger coming to do as well, plus holdovers from this year. And who knows what the math will end up looking like when all is said and done. So he's at least sitting here for the next couple of years, my guess. And I don't necessarily think that hurts his candidacy, but again, too, it's a situation where we all kind of see this. He's a Hall of Famer. But yeah, we kind of have to play this game of pretending like we can't select him right away because we haven't done enough in the past, and we have too much of a backlog of players that are ahead of him.
It's almost like somebody should come up with wait a minute, I already did that. Never mind.
Yeah, no, it's a bottleneck. I'll be bullish on him. I think he's going to get in sooner than later. I don't know if it's this year or not, but I think because he's the only tight end this year, and some of the other reasons we talked about, there's some players that are good but not great. The running backs, probably nobody in. Wide receivers, probably just the one. Defensive players, which only has 7 or 8 players. What's going to happen to Vinatieri, we don't know. So I'm gonna go out on a limb and say he gets in this year because the Cowboys, they're the Cowboys. He's a leader all time in yards for them at the tight end position, I think, and face of not quite the face of the franchise per se, but certainly one of them. Played for a long time. So we'll see. Nobody knows what the committee's going to do, but I'll be more bullish on him than you guys that he'll get through.
Well, for me, the most fascinating position here is the offensive line. First off, no centers. So one prediction I made 2 years ago, again, it's not because I want this to happen. It just feels like that's how it's going to be. Next center who gets in is Jason Kelce. I don't necessarily agree with that. Nothing against Jason. I just think there's some goddamn talented centers out there who have been waiting. I actually thought there was a good shot that Marquise Pouncey might have advanced in his first year on the ballot, but obviously that didn't happen. So we have 3 returning finalists. Willie Anderson, who, right or wrong, is taking the lead for a lot of this. I think he was top 7 last year, was he not? Okay.
Correct.
Yeah. Jari Evans, a former Saint.
Former Packer.
I would like to
very briefly
1 year in Green Bay. But Jari's going to get in because, again, if you're a finalist in year 1, you're not going to be excluded. There's only one person that ever happened to, and he killed his wife. Well, he did. And then himself. And then the other returnee is Marshall Yanda. So both of them, all 3 of them are very early-ish in their candidacy. Willie's been eligible how many years now? We're reaching not the end of it, but he's still got some time. Willie seems to be the top guy in the queue, but we have 3 guys who are here. Richmond Webb, who in his penultimate year. I don't know if the 2 of you have seen this, but there is an amazing video that Dan from France did. Have you seen that?
Mm-mm.
Okay. Dan goes by Dan. I think it's Dan the Man 17 on X, and he actually does a podcast now with Richmond Webb. His actual last name is Marino. I think it's spelled differently, right? So I'm assuming that's how he became a Dolphin fan. So he is in love with all things Miami Dolphins. Is huge on getting Richmond Webb into the Hall of Fame, and he did this amazing fan video of that with interviews from people who are actually on the Hall of Fame committee. So Upton Bell's in it, and just sort of like talking to a lot of people. It's a brilliantly done video. I highly recommend everyone watching it, and I highly recommend anyone who's trying to get their candidate in, watch the class in which Dan does this, and just the respect and the labor of love without any kind of condescending, and just who he's reaching out to. You could all learn from that. Because I guarantee you, when you start off going to a voter, it's kind of a joke that so-and-so isn't in, chances are they're not going to listen to you.
Yeah.
But Richmond Webb is back. We'll see what happens here. Steve Wisniewski in his final year. He's been a semifinalist before. But the more interesting one to me is Lomas Brown. Also in his second to last year. Never been considered. I know that Barry Sanders has been very active on social media, pushing for him. So possibly that might have played a part. Either way, selfishly, even though I'm a Jari guy, I would love for them just to put Wisniewski, Webb, and Brown through as opposed to the other three. It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
But I'd rather those three get in that room to be discussed. None of them have. And I don't know that you can really say that, this group of Anderson, Evans, and Yanda were that much better than the other three we just talked about in Lomas, Webb, and Wisniewski. I don't think you can really say that. Not by a huge margin anyway.
Yeah, a little bit of, position difference, with a couple of guards in there, a couple of tackles in there. So you get a little bit of a mix there. Really kind of hoping Wisniewski does slide through here in his final year. He's waited long enough. His career deserved to be talked about before his 20th year of eligibility. So I hope they do the right thing and he takes the spot in the 15 here this year. Willie Anderson being 12th year on the ballot this year, so he does have a little bit of time left, but he's more than halfway through his eligibility. So top 7 last year, would expect him to be near the top again this year, just based on that. And kind of like with the wide receivers, we're starting to get a little bit of a backlog here with the offensive linemen, because there's several, as you mentioned, that with the Pouncey that probably belong to be, in this group here that aren't here yet. So let's hopefully get some of these guys put through as well and get them into the Hall of Fame, because they belong. Richmond Webb belongs in the Hall of Fame. Willie Anderson belongs in the Hall of Fame. Steve Wisniewski, I think, belongs in the Hall of Fame. So we'll see what happens.
On some good teams,
yeah, for sure. We'll see what happens. Happy for Lomas Brown. I think he needs to be talked about, and we'll see where that goes.
Yeah, I think if you're talking about the strength of the best players on there, I'd probably go Jari Evans and Marshall Yanda. But in terms of urgency, obviously, I don't think Webb's going to get in, even though he's in our other, we voted him in the other mechanism in our mock polls. But I'd like to see, Anderson and Wisniewski get a lot of serious consideration. They were really greats of their era. The type of guy I always think, when you lead into a game, which players are you going to talk about are keys to the game? Well, if they're talking about offensive line, it was going to be Anderson, and Wisniewski, along with Yanda and Evans. So that's kind of where I'm going with. I love Lomas Brown, but I think it's just a little too late for him. So I think we'll hopefully a couple linemen get through. Like you said, we've got a log jam here, so the more linemen that kind of go through, the fewer chances for a running back or a tight end. But all deserving, but no real home run hitters in this class like we saw with Fitzgerald and Brees.
Yeah, Steve Wisniewski, 13 seasons in the league, 206 games played, only missed one game, non-strike situation, 8 Pro Bowls, second team all decade for the 90s. Why are we waiting until his 20th year to talk about him?
Raider fans don't even talk about him.
Yeah, they're pushing Plunkett, and but what's the problem here? What are we doing?
Like, I was on a Raider podcast not that long ago, and it took a while. Like, I had to bring up Wisniewski.
I'm glad the committee got him, this far here. Let's hope they continue to want to talk about his career.
Yeah, I'm hoping that three of them get through, and one of the ones who go through to the finals is somebody different. Whether that excludes, won't be Willie, because again, I think they've got him top on that one. And whether that's my guy Jari or whether that's Yanda, so be it. Just so that one of them has that shot. And it's also that shot in the arm for a potential senior candidate, which is getting harder and harder to come by.
Yeah, Jari was top 10 last year. Yanda was top 10 last year. So, I mean, they were both right in the same boat there.
Mm-hmm. Well, we got 3 defensive linemen and one very, very pleasant surprise. I know I'll be talking with Evan Nolan tomorrow, and he's going to be a very, very happy Patriots fan, even though this guy wasn't a Patriot. But sometimes that just sort of happens. You get into this process, and then you just sort of like say, wait a minute, what about this guy? I know that's not my team, but what about this guy? That guy, it's Kevin Williams. 5 first-team All-Pros. What's the knock on him? Yeah, he was on a boat in Lake Minnetonka. He didn't organize it.
I think that in Star Caps.
Yeah, that. Well, that's
mm-hmm.
Kevin's numbers don't pop out at you, but that's because he wasn't paid to do that. He was paid to do everything else, much like Vince Wilfork. Another great guy. Just phenomenal player. Kevin's got the better resume than Vince. I think Vince might even tell you that. Robert Mathis, though, seems to be a bit of a darling. And again, we've got that Peyton Manning Colts team. Fascinating to me. I'm obviously super happy for Kevin Williams. I don't know that he can leapfrog these other 2, though, who have been semifinalists before.
Yeah, I would agree with that. He's going to be probably, if as the discussions winnow down, he'll be not as much talked about, but we've talked about him a lot on your other shows of the things he did, and he certainly deserves a better look than he's getting. And then we'll see. Yeah, Wilfork, tons of good Patriots teams, and Mathis. Again, it seems to be a theme. We kind of have a evenly matched field, which could hurt. Like you said, does collusion matter at some point? You all get behind one of them to kind of keep them going again, to get rid of that backlog. I was glad to see Jared Allen get in last year. I was stumped for him before on your shows. All 3 are good, great players, borderline. And given today's climate, I don't see them making a strong push towards the finalist or election.
Yeah, I'm happy to see Kevin Williams finally get his chance here. Again, he was second team all decades for the 2000s. 6 Pro Bowls, 5 first-team All-Pros. Him and Vince Wilfork were definitely different style players who's, again, not going to show up in a box score. And I think that does hurt him somewhat, and why the accolades of the Pro Bowls, of the All-Pros, of the all-decade teams should carry more weight for them, just for that position. And happy to see him. Mathis, yeah, I mean, he's got some numbers, sack numbers. We already put in, or the committee already put in, his teammate there a couple years ago. Blanking on his name right now, but
Freeney.
Thank you. So I kind of surprised that he's carried as much weight in the room as he has so far, but I don't think any of these 3 are really strong candidates to be selected this year, though.
Well, I think, like it or not, you're going to, even though it's a different position, you're always going to be compared with the linebackers. And you've got 2 super heavyweights, 2 former defensive player of the years, Luke Kuechly, Terrell Suggs. I would have lost money if I would have bet, which is why I don't gamble. But if had I been able to bet on Luke Kuechly getting into the Pro Football Hall of Fame, I thought he was going to go in first ballot. That didn't happen. I understand he was very close, but he's back again, and that doesn't help anyone else, because I still think that he's the best defensive player not in, who's still here. The only one who could challenge him maybe is Suggs, and they're both right here.
Yeah, I think this is one of the stronger positions, and Suggs played a little defensive end as well. Again, with the eye-popping numbers and his ability to disrupt both of their. Keekly was just a guy that if he was in the middle of your defense, you knew you weren't going to make big plays. He was going to get you at the first level, if not the second level. And then Suggs, of course, just was a superstar player on really good defenses. Sidekick to Ray Allen. No, Ray Lewis, wrong sport. Ray Lewis, all those years, where they just completely dominated the division, the conference. And so I think these guys are going to make a pretty big run, and one, if not both, will get in.
Yeah, Kuechly very easily could have been a first ballot guy last year with the prior voting criteria where you basically had your 15, 10, 5, and then you up or down on the final 5. But he had to sit back here a year. Very similar career to Patrick Willis here, that was recently inducted as well. Took Willis a few years to get in. Kuechly seems to be maybe a little bit more of a fast track than Willis, but whether he's in this year, waits another year, he's not going to be on this list for us to talk about much longer. He's a Hall of Famer. He's going in sooner rather than later. Hell of a career, and the shortness of it may stand out a little bit, but we've seen that's kind of fallen by the wayside more so than it's been in the past with some of the recent electees.
All right, so we've got 4 players left. 3 safeties. Safety is often the hardest position to get in, but no corners stopping them. Rodney Harrison, first off, dirty player, but now he's such a beloved commentator. It's okay. We forgive you. Earl Thomas, who might be the best talent of that, but didn't end his career in the shiniest light. And Darren Woodson, the holdover, he is on his 3rd last ballot, I believe. So this is a shit or get off the pot moment almost for Woodson. And we're getting, again, with the current structure, I think they're committed to this for 3 years, this being year 2, or do I have that correct?
I think it's at least 3.
Okay.
I thought there was maybe a chance after a lot of the outcry from last year that they may only do 2 years, but we'll see how this year goes.
Okay. So I think it's going to be really hard for any of these 3, again, not because they're not all quality players, they certainly are, but on the defensive side of the ball, this ballot's skewing far more offense, as we've seen. And the 2 linebackers have far better resumes. Saying that, we saw Eric Allen got in. And I think a lot of us were very happy for Eric. I don't think any of us predicted it, but we're all happy for him. It might have to be one of those things where there might be either a lot of people thinking the same type of idea. And if so, even though I've got Thomas in the highest regard, could Darren Woodson follow that Eric Allen path? I know it's a different position, but both DBs.
I really hope so. Of the Cowboys that are eligible this year, he's the one I'm really hoping does get his name called. I think he's the Cowboys' all-time leading tackler. He kind of became one of those first cover guys on cover safety guys for a slot of the slots there. Just a pillar for their defense in those years when they were one of the top teams in the NFL. He's waited. Not really a big Cowboys fan personally, but he recognized greatness and he brought greatness with him every game he played. I don't think he needs to be waiting much longer. I'm really pulling from this year. He was a top 10 guy last year, so it's not totally out of the realm of possibility that he could slide into the Hall this year. But I think at least top 7 is definitely on the table for him, and which would set him up nicely if he doesn't make it this year to be a very strong candidate next year.
Yeah, I think so. I think he's right in that maybe 6 to 7 to 8 to 10 range. I every time we've done the votes on the other shows, I've always put him down till he falls off somehow because people don't realize. And I'm not a Cowboys fan either, but he was definitely a star on that defense. He played for the Cowboys for a long time. Some of the other guys moved in and out, just depending, on free agency and stuff. So to me, that it shouldn't help necessarily, but he played on a lot of good teams. He was always a contributor, a leader on the defense. He was the glue, talent wise. Like Chris was saying, he could cover just about any receiver one-on-one, and he brought the boom on the tackles, all-time leader. I like Rodney Harrison. He's probably a few slots back of him. A good player on some great defenses, but to me, not the guy that was the superstars of those teams when you have some Sayals and some Brewskis and some guys like that. Then I'm a big Earl Thomas fan, Longhorn graduate. We're trying to get another. We got McMichael in finally. That was our third, so hopefully, but I don't see it in terms of overall longevity and contribution at his position. He played on some really, really good teams. Again, the guy that was part of some good defenses, but not necessarily the leader. Maybe for a peak, if he could have kept that longer, I'd go with him. But so I think this position will be shut out. I think maybe one gets to the finals, but I don't think we're going to see any of these three guys get in.
I think you're probably right. I think that's sort of how that's going to skew. I think if Woodson is that one last guy, though, that would help him more.
Yeah.
If he's the only,
if he can get to the kind of the final discussion, there's a chance.
Yeah, and one of those positions where probably the best thing that can happen is for him to be isolated and not compared to anyone else.
Right.
And I guess it leaves with only the one person who is automatically isolated. The only one I believe on this list who is a member of the 100th anniversary team, who probably would have got in last year had it been the previous setup. And that's Adam Vinatieri. He has everything you need. He's going to get in. Should he have been a first ballot inductee? Well, I know people say that about kickers, but if Jan Stenerud is, Adam Vinatieri definitely is, but he wasn't. I think they correct that wrong. I don't know at whose expense it's going to be. Maybe Kuechly again.
Oh gosh, I'm not a big fan of kickers. Now on baseball shows, I've stumped for relievers before. So to me, this is like a relief pitcher position, right? You come in for a very niche skill. You come in for very important moments of the game that you literally can win or lose depending upon your performance in this limited time. You're not somebody like Ricky Watters carrying the ball 25, 30 times a week, trying to set your team up for that. I'd rather go with that guy. But if you're going to talk about greatest at the position over extended period of time, checks that box. Big moments, checks that box. Super Bowls, checks that box. And so it'd be hard to keep him out. A debate for 10 years from now is what do we do with all these kickers that are knocking down 59-yarders like they're extra points these days? And it became the same with closers, right? We had the Fingers and the Gossages and these guys that would go 2-3 innings. Now, how do you handle a Kenley Jansen or somebody like that kind of has this, that all of a sudden have better numbers, quote, so to speak. Anyway, different conversation for a different day, but it'll be interesting whether he can, because he's not really compared against any of the other candidates, what sort of support he gets. Are they going to go with, two quarterbacks to the finals, two receivers, two linemen? You start putting on a numbers game that, oh yeah, he'll get in eventually. He's not going to have that much competition down the road. We'll just kind of table him and try to get in the Kuechlys and the Suggs. So I wouldn't be surprised either way. I have the least feel for this, whether he's going to, get down to the finals and just get in, or he's just going to kind of be held right on the outside because of the bottleneck, so to speak.
Yeah. Again, as I think Kirk, you mentioned at the beginning of our show, we have, the go to the kickers right now. He is. I mean, every pressure kick that you could think of, he had to make. He was put in the position to. He succeeded more often than not. Kickers are not perfect. You don't really think about them until you need one, and then you can't find one. So having the reliability of his career. I agree. He's a Hall of Famer. Was he a first ballot guy? comparing him to other kickers in the Hall of Fame, probably should have been, but the wacky math that they're using this time around and last time around worked against him.
And it's what you're saying too, Dave. Yeah, I mean, what we're seeing now in kicking, I mean, it's so different. But I mean, at the same time, he still was doing that, and that was sort of a template and the evolution that we're following. Ray Guy, when you look at old tapes of him, especially in the 70s, when I think I don't know this for sure, but I've got to imagine piles of people thought Al Davis was a complete lunatic for drafting a punter in the first round. And it was genius, because you watch those old Raiders, which during the pandemic, I was watching 70s football. That's all I was watching, was just stuff
desperate
like that.
Times.
Well, a lot of it was brand new for me. So it was still, also too, like you grew up in Texas, you grew up in Wisconsin. I grew up in Ontario, so like we had every week, it was the Cowboys game. It would be an NFC South game, or Buffalo if I moved the antenna just right. And they were getting thumped by whoever, because they weren't very good until I was a teenager. At least like during that time. So like every time it was the game of the week, it was always NFC East, always. And I wasn't allowed to stay up to watch Monday Night Football, and I don't think there was Sunday Night Football then. So a lot of these people I hear about, I never really got to see. So you'd watch Ray Guy, and then like, why isn't everyone else sort of like doing the same thing? Why is he the only one extending his leg like that? It's all those things that have been there, but people weren't doing. And yes, if Adam Vinatieri began his career, would he be a top 10 kicker right now? Probably not. But you can't go by that. I can use that on so many other positions, quarterback especially. When we're looking, a lot of that sort of changed. Those old Raider games? My God, Fred Biletnikoff. How the hell did he exist?
Crazy legs.
He should have been dead the first time he walked on the field. I don't know how he possibly survived, let alone thrived, in that body, despite the fact, it was smaller guys beating him up. He wasn't laying in any hits.
Mm-hmm.
The guy who, facially looked 50, had no athleticism, but he was just, he could. You have to go by each era and what they're doing.
He's got the award named after him for the college wide receiver of the year.
Yeah,
exactly. That means something.
No, and it means a lot. And it's one of those things you could just judging. Sometimes then you overthink it at those things. Well, look at that. He's a perfect specimen for everything. Okay, yeah. Can he throw? I remember they were doing that all for Jesse
Marinovich. Todd Marinovich.
Yeah. Jesse Palmer is another great one. Mm-hmm. It's like that. Yeah, okay, great, but he's missing this target all the time.
Don't pay attention to that.
Yeah, okay. Well, you want your quarterback to be around 6'3.5", and like, well, sometimes you just got to let him play. But okay, that was a tangent. At least that was a useful tangent, unlike my others. I think we're gonna do this again maybe next week, because the seniors are going to be out for those 3 finalists, which will probably be dead men coming, because I don't think any of them are getting in, no matter what.
Yeah, it just depends on who the contributor nominee is. I think I'd be very surprised if Belichick's not the coach nominee. He's gonna sop up a lot of those votes.
He should.
Yeah. No reason. Yeah, you're right. I mean, it's not a bad thing. I mean, it's what's expected, but there's 150 votes to go around for 5 guys, and you got to get 40 of them to be elected. So,
and it'll be hard. I mean, people vote on people. Belichick's on that, and Kraft's on it.
Mm-hmm.
How do you not put those two at the same time?
Yeah, how do you distinguish? One of them called plays, the other anyway.
He called, the other one called ahead.
Yeah, right.
To get ahead. And then there's Bill Belichick. Jesus Christ. Thank God he got into the United States Athletic Hall of Fame in year one, because I don't know that he would have been able to do that now.
I don't know.
Well,
elevator down.
Oh my God. I don't know. So maybe someone tell Jordan that he's already qualified, that he's already inducted, and she can write an acceptance speech for him not to give. And that's for the United States Athletic Hall of Fame. Vote for that because you only have a couple more days left. www.theusahof.com. Thank you all so much for supporting that project that Chris and Dave are a part of, and we're sort of extending that further. We've actually got some bigger names that are going to be coming to be a part of this, and we're really excited about that moving forward. Check out everything else that we do here in the Buchnerverse at notinhalloffame.com. Always check out Dave's blog, LHD on sports. Always a great thing too. And I think one of my favorite things about that, Dave, sometimes like you say, you avoid the obvious ones just so that you can spread it around a little bit.
Yeah, to try to be a little diverse and in sports, and sometimes I'll go fish for one, but sometimes right now it's football. I mean, you're not gonna see many hockey and NBA guys just because it's not that time of year where there's these huge games. But next year we'll have the World Baseball Classic, the Winter Olympics, World Cup. It's gonna be a crazy sports year. There'll be lots of that.
Mm-hmm. And also check out the elevator show that Chris and I do, where every month we look at that respective Hall of Fame elevator, who made a case up, who made a case down. And basically, if you're a gambling person, you're probably on the elevator going down these days. Oof. More people are going to come out because some of those guys are going to start singing.
Oh yeah, nothing to lose at that point.
I saw that I didn't realize it until today that there's actually 31 people that they indicted for that. 31, and including most people I've never even heard of.
That's the tip of the iceberg, probably. They're going to know people that they didn't find anyway. Yeah, it's going to get worse for you. It's better.
Yeah, one is this Asian American painter who just somehow got into this circle, painting like pictures of. She finally made it through by painting a picture of Kevin Hart's kid or mom or something like that, and then just became sort of a fixture at all these things. Perhaps that her nickname is Pookie should have been a giveaway. I don't. Just my own personal experience. If someone's nicknamed Pookie, they're probably not someone you want to be with. Don't ask me how I know. Now's a good time to close this off. Wherever you are, wherever you may be, make today count because it never comes again. Take care.
Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.